Good morning, my shepherds. Just kidding. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Weekly Awakening Podcast. This is episode 266 officially. Did I even figure that out yet? I'm not sure. I decided to throw you guys a little curveball with my introduction. I was listening to last week's episode, and I had this moment where I was like, oh my God, I've been doing the same introduction, even just, and it's not, I say it the same every time. It's not like a pre-recorded introduction. And I was like, I even have like the same tone when I say the Weekly Awakening Podcast. This is your host, Cosmic Colleen. And I was like, okay, Colleen, it's time to switch up your voice tone. So I wanted to throw you guys for a little loop. How is everyone feeling after this full moon in Taurus? Like I said last week, it was some sleepy vibes and I was a wreck. I was so tired. This past weekend, we first had Mars enter. Mars just this week entered into Sagittarius, but we had Mercury enter into Sagittarius. And I know it was, I don't know, for us, probably my mutable placements this weekend, there was a lot of crazy energy and it was sort of hard to sleep and hard to process. And then boom, when the full moon hit, it was like dead to the world. Plus, I know as the time change, the shift, the darkness is getting darker earlier, but I don't know about you. I was in bed by 8 o'clock the last 3 nights, and I definitely don't do that shit. So today we're waking up, and this evening we got Venus entering Scorpio now. Friday, November 7th, Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus one last time for everyone who is listening to this podcast. This will be Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus for a few months. And then this will be the last time in literally any of our lifetimes for anyone who's listening, even my son, who's a Taurus rising. You know, it takes around 86 years to circle back. So we're never going to see this again, Uranus and Taurus, after these next few months. And then it will progress back into Gemini, where it will be for about 7 years. Then Mercury retrograde this weekend in Sagittarius begins on Sunday at 2:01 p.m. and it will retrograde back into Scorpio. So we're going to talk about those things on today's episode. So first, let's talk about Venus entering Scorpio, the water sign. Venus will be in Scorpio until November 30th. We are just coming off the heels of the full moon in Taurus with Venus, the host, you know, the ruling planet over this full moon. She rules over both Taurus and Libra. In the late degrees of Libra. So like I said on last week's episode, there was a more harmonious full moon, I think, than it could be. There was definitely some processing, but I think it just really amounted to just very tired energy. And almost for some of you who maybe it was a little more agitated, it was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired type of energy that was coming through. But either way, it definitely was sleepy. So now that Venus, she's moving into the deeply felt sign of Scorpio, where we will have the sun in Scorpio, Mercury will retrograde back into Scorpio, and on Monday the 24th, Venus and Mercury retrograde will conjunct in Scorpio. So again, we'll talk about that over the next 2 weeks when we get a little bit closer. So Taurus, Libra, Scorpio, and Aries, those are my Venus placements and my Mars placements. Y'all are going to be feeling this the most. And my Gemini, Virgos, my Mercurial placements. But that's about the general, you know, I'm going to speak about the general like I usually do, energy. But whatever the general is, you guys will be feeling a little bit more. It'll be magnified for my Venus, Mars placements. With Venus, okay, we talk about love, joy, beauty, self-love. With Mars, we talk about sex, passion, desire, drive. Venus in a Mars ruled sign like Scorpio tends to put the more intense watery energy that Venus likes, but doesn't come natural to her. She feels natural just where she was in the air sign of Libra. You know, it's easy, it's cushy, it's fun, it's nice. I don't know why I just got a vision of like the Kardashians, but I feel like Venus in Libra feels very Kardashian-like to me as well. Isn't Kim Kardashian a Libra? Right? I think so. Maybe that's why, but she just like the gushy, the good things, the lighthearted feelings. You don't really have to go that deep. So now when she's in Scorpio, she has to go that deep. She loves it. She enjoys the intensity of it, but it can sometimes push into some uncomfortable energy. So this will have us all in general feeling the emotions on a deeper level, like we're talking about when it comes to that Venus stuff and bringing into the deeper felt Mars level. So not just our love, our romance, but we're going to get a little more intense with our own self-love, self-confidence, our own friendships, and we're going to naturally be kind of seeking out more intense flavors, energies of the world, even with our art, right? You know, maybe you're someone who appreciates art. You might start, going down some of the Salvador Dali, right? I remember seeing an art display in again, this sort of transit reminds me of that Venus and Scorpio went in Soho, maybe it was 2 years ago. And I walked in pretending like I could buy one. They were like talking to me. I had my fake, bag on, Gucci bag. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll let you know. But I remember the displays were heaven, purgatory, and hell. And it was really, really, I don't know if anyone have seen his work. I mean, I'm not like a fine artist type of person, but it was really incredible. And that feels very, like who really wants to see the paintings of the underworld or the purgatory? Everyone wants to see heaven, but especially those two things, it feels very Venus and Scorpio, like that deep hidden beauty that are in things that sometimes don't necessarily represent your quintessential or your typical beauty, you could say. So here's some of the general, and again, for my Venus and Mars ruled people, it's going to be a little bit more intensified. Conversations about taking a relationship to a next level can happen, or in general, deeper conversations that push the level of comfortability, where you have to really share with your partner about what your true feelings are. This is a transit where what you haven't been talking about bubbles up, and you are left with having to have those deep conversations. And if you don't bring up anything over the next week or so, it will come back again when Mercury retrogrades back into Scorpio. When Mercury retrogrades back into Scorpio, you'll almost be forced to talk about it. So if you don't get it out in the next week or two, it's going to come back around and that truth will come out. With Mars being in Sagittarius, so we're looking to Mars because Mars rules over Scorpio. I know some of you who know astrology follow, but I like to repeat this stuff because I have a lot of people who are newer to astrology, and these repeated descriptions of what the planets and signs are help plant the seed so you guys will remember forever. So with Mars being in Sagittarius right now, and remember that matters, like I said, because Venus is being in a Mars ruled sign. So when it comes to your self-confidence, because that's a big thing that Venus represents, or how your self-reflections when it comes to your body or what you do or those sort of art type of things, when it comes to your confidence, how much you believe in yourself, this will have you seeing your lack in self-confidence in a deep way, but also have you wondering how you can seek the change you need in a hopeful way. This is a time where you may bring in new habits that involve very Jupiterian things like dance, art, yoga, traveling, but maybe like traveling to the Costa Rica jungle and having an experience with a shaman, or maybe just some sort of traveling to Jersey Shore and having a retreat with fellow people who are going through what you're going through. Music therapy, dance therapy, the list goes on. But you may be taking action and gaining your step up with confidence through doing those things. You might not even realize how much confidence can bring by you bringing that into your life, taking those action steps. We can't just think about where we need to gain confidence, but also do something about that. A great way to build confidence is through action, trying something new. And like I said on last week's episode, with Mars and Sagittarius right now, action is getting done. We're getting moving again, and especially Jupiterian type of thing. So my fire placements, you guys are getting shit on the move. When it comes to creative energy, the same goes for what I said just above. Right now is not above, right, I guess in the back of what I just said. When it comes to confidence, go out there and try taking on a new, art or spiritual habit as well. The same things goes, our self-confidence and our creativity are hand in hand, just with our creativity and sexuality, our creativity in our mind. All those go hand in hand. There's different levels of art that almost come through each of the chakra points, you could say. So the creative energy you need to break through is also going to come through taking action with these habits. Go really inward and go deep with your meditations and frequencies. This may be a time where you realize your creative energy is directly related to your emotional energy. If something is weighing on you heavily and it isn't helping your creative energy. I said isn't because I know sometimes when my emotions are weighing heavy and I can actually create because I'm distracting from it. But eventually, or sometimes other emotional weight weighs a little bit heavier, your creativity can actually be blocked from those feelings and you can distract. That means you must move it through you. So you may not even be sure right now what emotionally is holding you back. But if you don't know, then you soon will. And remember, sometimes it does. Sometimes the emotional pain actually helps you create, but sometimes it can get you blocked too. So focus in on actually how you're feeling there. Is the emotional pain helping you create or is it blocking you? Joy isn't going to be so lighthearted like it is when Venus is in one of the air signs. This might be a time where it's deep connections or nothing. You won't have time for silly little conversations. It's basically all or nothing. It's deep or nothing. You're not going to be like, how's the weather? You're going to want to go right down to those deep conversations and seek out naturally deep connections. You might start to even find yourself being like, ugh, I don't even feel like I have any, I don't get along with those people anymore. I have nothing in common. They can't reach the emotional depths that I can. That's good too, but don't lose your lighthearted friends, okay? Sometimes we get too deep into the healing and the darkness that we need the lightheartedness. I'm just saying right now you may be seeking out more of that deep connection. Now, let's talk about Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius and Scorpio. Sort of ties into what I just said with Venus in Scorpio, because Venus will be in Scorpio, for the entire time that Mercury retrogrades. So Mercury stations retrograde on November 9th at 6 degrees in Sagittarius. On November 29th, oh wait, what am I doing now? Way before that. Hold on, I don't have my calendar. I'm sorry. I wrote down the date, but I'm like, wait, it ends on the 29th in Scorpio and stations at the 20th degree, but it moves next week back in to Scorpio. I'm like, why didn't I write that date? And I don't even have my calendar. So Mercury is said to be in its detriment in Sagittarius. And I've explained this on different episodes in the past when it comes to Mercury being in Jupiter's energy. Many different episodes, pretty much if you can look at Mercury in any of the signs, or when Jupiter was in Gemini, I talked a lot about it. So Mercury is very literal. It likes to make sense, mental sense of things. It doesn't really like to rely on the feelings. It wants to process and then categorize and say, okay, I'm feeling this way because this, time to move on. But when Mercury is in Jupiter, is in one of Jupiter's signs, Sagittarius or Pisces, it has a much harder time doing that. And so not being able to think for itself, not being able to think itself out of feelings, which Mercury likes to do. It can't really make sense of things. Your emotions might be all over the place, maybe even a touch manic. So while Mercury retrogrades in Sagittarius, there are a few things that can happen. And remember, at first, while it's in Sagittarius, it always seems, a Mercury retrograde, but in general, it definitely seems very wonky or very traditional Mercury retrograde. Issues happen, technology failure, miscommunications, not sure where your feelings land, your brain feeling foggy or mixed up. This is the time, like that's always said, don't take on anything new unless it's something that already had been brought up in the past. Try not to sign anything, and obviously we have to live, so it said that Mercury is trickery, so that's why it says that. So if you do have to sign a lease or sign a contract, read through everything. Don't skip anything, because I know none of us like to read contracts, but read it through during this time before you sign anything. So that still stands true. But Mercury is always trying to teach you how to be mercurial, which is going with plan B, C, being flexible, changing, shifting. So while Mercury, like I said, retrogrades first in Sagittarius, there'll be a few things that happen. Mercury can't make sense of things, like I said, and however, that currently been brought up. However, it can make sense of past issues, thoughts, or emotions that came up in previous retrogrades that never came to conclusion of making sense then. Will make sense now. However, for everything else, it will feel like a manic mix-up. You will feel emotions that don't make sense, and you won't be able to make sense of the jumbled up mind for right now. Now, it seems scary, but one thing to keep in mind is sometimes we need to lose our mind to find it again. Okay? Sometimes it's almost like when you unplug the computer, the old thing, and you plug it back in and it starts working. You shut down your phone, you turn it back in, it starts working. Well, the same can be said with, yes, meditation, because that's where I was like, wait, Colleen, you actually want to use that and describe a meditation. But also, just scrambling up your mind. Sometimes you have to scramble up your mind. Sometimes you have to get so confused in order to make sense of something again. Because believe it or not, if you're not making sense of it right now, you are already confused. So why not let your mind get more confused? And then hopefully you find yourself and you find your thoughts. Thank you, everyone. I will be back next week, and then we'll be talking about Mercury ingressing back into Scorpio, what that means for you. But for now, ride that energy. Already now, today I woke up and I have so much energy. So I feel like that Mars in Sagittarius is finally taking off now that it's not colored with the moon in Gemini now, and now it's not colored with that full moon in Taurus. So everyone, ride that wave of manic hyper energy, because this full moon in Scorpio, oh my God, this Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius this first week will definitely bring a lot of energy. All right. I love you all. Thank you for listening. The best way to support this podcast is to rate, review, share it with a friend, post about it. So many of you are constantly doing that, and I'm forever grateful. I love you all, and goodbye.